When the Fosters finally brought me back as their real daughter, it rained for a month straight, torrential, unrelenting rain. My father, superstitious to his core, took one look at the storm and decided I was cursed. From that moment on, I was nothing but bad luck in his eyes. He made it clear I was unwanted. As for the foster daughter, the one who had taken my place all those years, she seized the opportunity. With my father's disgust as her shield and my mother's silence as her permission, she made my life a living hell. Every chance she got, she bullied and humiliated me, and no one lifted a finger to stop her. My mother, who should have protected me, just stood by. She watched it all happen, her eyes cold, her heart colder. And then the flood came. The rain finally broke, unleashing a catastrophic flood that swallowed the world. In the chaos, they threw me out like I was nothing. Like I was disposable. They sacrificed me to save themselves. But that wasn't the end for me. When I woke up, I was back. Back before the rain started. Back before the flood. This time, it won't be me who's cast aside. This time, it's their turn to face the storm. And I'll make sure they drown in it. Chapter 1. This week's forecast calls for continued heavy rainfall, so make sure to carry an umbrella and exercise caution while traveling. I blinked at the weather report, my eyes fixed on the date. My heart raced, disbelief flooding through me. I had actually gone back to a week before the flood. The weather reporter continued her broadcast, her voice calm and professional, but I was already lost in my memories. The last thing I remembered before dying drowning in muddy, suffocating water was how my lungs burned, how no amount of coughing could clear the thick, choking sludge from my throat. I coughed instinctively, the memory still too fresh. But before I could catch my breath, a slipper came flying toward me. Cough, 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 you're gonna cough away all my good fortune, you cursed brat. George's voice boomed from across the room. The slipper hit my leg, and the rancid smell of his feet wafted up, making me gag. I forced down the bile rising in my throat. George, my biological father, though that was about the only connection we had. As the long-lost daughter of the Foster family, I had been brought back into their home just as the southern city entered its rainy season. For nearly a month, the rain hadn't stopped. The constant downpour had ruined a significant portion of the Foster family's inventory, leaving it moldy and unsellable. And George, being the superstitious man he was, blamed it all on me. In his mind, I had brought misfortune to his doorstep the moment I stepped through it. He treated me like a curse, a walking disaster. And when the floodwaters finally came, he didn't hesitate to try and drown me, as if getting rid of me would somehow bring his business back to life. Dad, did Lily upset you again? Kelly's sickly, sweet voice cut through the tension as she strolled into the room, a fake smile plastered on her face. George was already absorbed in checking the stock market on his phone, too distracted to respond. Kelly's eyes shifted to me, the smile fading. Well? What are you standing around for? Get to work. Despite being their real daughter, I was nothing more than a servant in that house. Every task, every dirty job, they made sure it fell to me. And Kelly, she never missed an opportunity to make my life harder. Like now. I had barely grabbed the mop when Kelly's hand shot out, her nails digging into my arm painfully. What's the matter? She sneered, her grip tightening. A few days without a beating, and you forget your place? The pain was sharp, like she was ready to tear the skin from my bones. I used to be terrified of Kelly. Back in high school, she had made my life a living nightmare. I was just a poor scholarship student from the countryside back then, while she was the pampered daughter of a wealthy family, and she never let me forget it. She and her friends bullied me relentlessly, stuffing my desk full of trash, tearing up my textbooks, scribbling all over my clothes. And when that wasn't enough, they escalated. They held my head down in the school fountain until I choked, cut up my uniform, and cornered me in the bathroom to beat me. I tried to report her once. She snatched the phone from my hand and hissed. Go ahead, call the police. I'll make sure your parents disappear. Her voice was ice cold. In the Foster family, you better know your place or your mom and dad will pay the price. Back then, I was weak. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I didn't fight back, maybe she'd leave my adoptive parents alone. But I was wrong. I'll never forget the moment I saw her push them off that lifeboat, watching them drown with the same cruel smile on her face. It was then I finally understood. Evil doesn't stop when you give in. It only grows bolder. The only way to survive is to fight back. Kelly still had that same malicious look in her eyes, but this time, I wasn't the same Lily she used to torment. I had been given a second chance, and I wasn't going to waste it. I turned to face her, my eyes locking onto hers. My voice was cold, steady. "You, idiot." For a moment, Kelly just stared at me, stunned. Then, her face twisted in fury, and she lunged at me. "You dare insult me?" But years of farm work and household chores had made me stronger than she realized. Before she could lay a hand on me, I shoved her back, sending her sprawling onto the floor. "Who do you think you are, you bastard?" I spat. "You're nothing." Chapter 2. This was probably the first time in Kelly's life that someone had dared to push her down. For a second, she just sat there, completely stunned. But when she realized what had happened, her face twisted in fury. Being the foster daughter of the Foster family had always been a sore point for her. And now, I had the audacity to call her out on it right to her face. It was like I had stabbed her in the heart. Her face contorted with rage like she was ready to tear me apart. At that moment, my mother, Emily, came rushing in, drawn by the noise. Kelly immediately shifted gears, her expression turning into one of wounded innocence. "Mom, Lily called me a bastard. Are you and Dad going to throw me away?" Emily, of course, rushed to comfort her. "Oh, sweetheart, of course not. You know you're my favorite," she cooed, pulling Kelly into a tight embrace. Then, like clockwork, she turned to me, her face hard and disapproving. "Lily, is this how you treat your family? Kelly's already upset, and now you're making things worse?" This was my mother. The woman who had given birth to me. In my past life, I spent years trying to win her affection, thinking that if I just tried hard enough, maybe she'd love me. Looking back, I realize how pathetic that was. While the three of them, George, Emily, and Kelly, lived their perfect little lives, having family dinners, going shopping together, I was left behind to clean the house, barely surviving on expired bread they tossed at me like scraps. I met Emily's gaze and asked. "She hit me first. Am I supposed to just let her?" Without missing a beat, Emily snapped back. "Kelly wouldn't have hit you if you hadn't provoked her." I let out a bitter laugh. "Oh. So, when she bullied me at school, was that my fault too?" For a moment, Emily hesitated. Maybe she remembered how spoiled and cruel Kelly could be. But whatever doubt she had disappeared quickly, and she straightened up, her tone turning self-righteous. "Even if Kelly started it, can't you just be the bigger person? You're her sister after all. Be the bigger person. Let it go." That was always her answer. It didn't matter how many times Kelly hurt me, I was always the one who had to forgive, to be the bigger person. I had known for a long time that Emily didn't love me. But in my past life, I couldn't let go of the hope that, deep down, she cared if only a little because I was her biological daughter. That hope had kept me clinging to her approval, even as they tied me to that post, ready to leave me there. I had begged her. "Mom, please. Help me. Please." She'd looked at me just once before grabbing Kelly's hand and running off. "Kelly, come with Mommy. I'll keep you safe." That was the moment my hope disappeared. And now, here we were again. A second chance at life, but Emily hadn't changed. Kelly could torment me all she wanted, and Emily would look the other way. The moment I stood up for myself, Emily would rush in to protect Kelly. I took a deep breath, and for the first time, I felt a strange sense of relief. "Thank you, Emily. Thank you for staying exactly the same. Dealing with someone like you, I won't feel any guilt." Kelly, as smug as ever, clung to her mother, already bragging about their upcoming plans. They were going to the next province to see a concert, and of course, George would be joining them too. It was a perfect little family trip. And me? George shot me a look of pure disgust. You're not coming. You'll just bring your bad luck with you. Stay here. I lowered my head, pretending to accept his words, but inside, I was smiling. Perfect. They were leaving me alone. Finally, I had the house to myself. Now, I had time to prepare to make sure that when the world started to crumble, I'd be ready. Chapter 3. I decided to pay a visit back to the countryside. Unlike the city, the village wasn't well equipped to deal with the constant rain. The roads were muddy, slick with patches of dirt that clung to my shoes. But none of that bothered me. No matter how rough the path, the road home was always a joyous one. As I approached the familiar gate of my parents' house, it looked exactly the same as it had in my memories. I paused, taking in a deep breath, feeling a wave of nostalgia wash over me. Then I called out. Mom! Dad! I'm home! From inside, I heard a loud clattering, probably something getting knocked over in their rush to the door. Seconds later, there they were, hurrying out to greet me. Sweetheart? You're really back? They weren't my biological parents. Years ago, I had been abandoned on the side of the road, and it was these two kind souls who found me and took me in, raising me as their own. When I was trapped in the foster family's mansion, feeling utterly helpless, it was them who called me. Don't worry, honey. We're coming to get you. Just hang in there. But instead of saving them, I had led them to their doom. When their small raft finally reached the mansion, Kelly and George, desperate to keep the raft for themselves, pushed my parents into the floodwaters when no one was looking. I could only stand there powerless, as the waves took them under until they disappeared completely. But this time, none of that had happened yet. Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked at them, alive and well. My voice trembled as I spoke. Mom, Dad, I've missed you both so much. My mother's eyes filled with tears as she pulled me close, her arms tight around me. Oh, sweetie, are you hungry? Let me make you a bowl of your favorite noodles. The smell of the noodles filled the kitchen, warm and familiar, just as comforting as I remembered. With each bite, I felt a little more like myself again. After I finished eating, I sat down with them and told them everything. I didn't hold anything back. I told them about my past life, the flood, and the betrayal I had suffered at the hands of the Fosters. By the time I was done, my mother was crying, her face red with anger. Those heartless devils! My father's voice was thick with emotion, his eyes rimmed with tears. Whatever you need, whatever you want to do, we've got your back. We're with you. I pulled out the bank card I'd taken from the Foster family and handed it to them. Mom, Dad, I've already thought everything through. I was going to build a fortress, a stronghold that would keep us safe from the coming disaster. I wasn't going to lose them again. This time, we were going to survive. The first thing we needed was a secure place, somewhere we could hide when the floodwaters came. This wasn't just any flood, this was unlike anything the world had ever seen. It would destroy bridges, drown highways, and even the tallest buildings wouldn't be safe. High-rise apartments weren't an option. With the floodwaters rising and staying for so long, the foundations would weaken, and entire buildings could collapse. My dad thought for a moment, and then slapped his knee as an idea came to him. What about the big mountain? It's right behind the village. It's over 300 meters high, taller than most buildings. There's even a cave near the top, hidden behind the trees. Not many people know about it. It stays cool in the summer and warm in the winter. When I was a kid, I used to camp out there all the time. As he spoke, he pulled out his phone and showed me pictures he had taken on his hikes up the mountain. My heart raced with excitement. This place is perfect. Chapter 4. With the location settled, the next step was finding people to handle the construction and stockpiling supplies. My dad took me to meet a construction crew, and we laid out the plan. We needed the cave behind the mountain to be turned into a livable space. At first, the contractor seemed a bit confused by the request. But as soon as I mentioned double pay, he perked right up and started nodding enthusiastically, even beating his chest in promise. Don't worry, we'll get it done exactly how you want it. With that sorted, I didn't hold back. I gave him a full list of requirements and told him I wanted it finished in 3 days. I left the supervision to my dad. He took on the responsibility with a grin, assuring me he'd keep the crew on track and make sure everything went smoothly on the mountain. "Don't worry about a thing," he said. "I've got this." Meanwhile, my mom and I focused on gathering supplies. In my previous life, when the flood came, it wiped out almost everything. Less than a third of humanity survived. Until everything settled down, we'd have to be prepared to live in isolation for a long time. First on the list was power. With the relentless rain, solar panels weren't going to be reliable. My mom and I agreed that fuel-powered generators would be our main source of electricity, with just a couple of solar units as backup. The cave was remote enough that we didn't have to worry about the noise drawing attention, especially with the constant rain and thunder masking it. Next, we needed to figure out how we'd cook and stay warm. There were plenty of trees around the cave, but wet wood was basically useless for fires. Coal was the solution. In the winter, our family usually burns about a ton of coal every 3 months. We decided to stockpile 30 tons just in case, enough to get us through any unexpected situations. The cave was spacious, with multiple chambers branching off. We could store the coal and fuel in one of the side caves, making sure it was well insulated and protected from moisture. After sorting out the coal, my mom and I split up. I headed to the big supermarkets in the city while she went to a large agricultural market in the outskirts. At the supermarket, I went straight to the manager and handed him a detailed shopping list. I needed him to prepare everything for bulk delivery. We bought enough rice, flour, cooking oil, and basic seasonings like sugar, vinegar, and salt to last the 3 of us for at least 10 years. Then came the quick meals: instant noodles, hot pot ingredients, frozen dumplings, canned meats, and self-heating meals. My mom had always preferred fresh, home-cooked food, but in a world where survival came first, long shelf life trumped freshness. Of course, we didn't forget the snacks and drinks. I ordered entire crates of everything: jerky, cakes, nuts, chips, cookies. For drinks, we stocked up on soda, yogurt, and fresh juices. As for household essentials, we went all out. Shampoo, soap, paper towels, toilet paper, thick blankets, and bedding for every season. These items last for ages, so I didn't bother calculating exact amounts. I just waved my hand and ordered them by the dozens of boxes. After sorting out the delivery details, I quickly hopped into a cab and headed home, eager to get everything in place. Chapter 5. My mom had already placed a hefty order at the farmer's market: hundreds of pounds of meat. After making sure the butcher had everything under control, she hurried back home to start whipping up one of my favorite meals. Outside, the rain was relentless, streams of water cascading from the roof and into the gutters. After dinner, my dad settled beside me, lazily fanning himself. "Sweetie," he began, his voice hesitant. "Is this flood really going to be that bad?" I nodded. "Yeah, Dad. It's not just a regular flood. It's caused by days of non-stop, heavy rainfall. Over half of our city is going to be underwater." His face tightened with concern, and he fell silent for a moment, clearly thinking something over. "Well, maybe we should warn the villagers," he finally said, glancing at me. Before I could respond, my mom, who had been busy stuffing sausage casings in the kitchen, stormed over and yanked on his ear. "Are you out of your mind?" she scolded. "You want our daughter to go through that nightmare again? You think that wasn't bad enough the first time?" She let go of his ear and planted her hands on her hips. "And you know how the people in this village are. If they catch wind of this, they'll rob us blind." I gave my dad a serious look and added, "Dad, last time, the villagers turned on us. They took advantage of the situation." He let out a long sigh, his shoulders sagging. All right, I won't say anything. If the people in the village had been decent, we would have warned them, maybe even helped them prepare. But if they were going to act like vultures, and then we had no choice but to look out for ourselves." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. During the day, my dad kept a close eye on the construction up on the mountain. My mom and I were running around, trying to gather as many supplies as possible. We hit the wholesale clothing market and stocked up on clothes for every season: t-shirts for spring and summer, sweaters and coats for fall and winter, and plenty of pajamas for all year round. Next, we grabbed seeds: potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, lettuce, cabbage, mushrooms, you name it, we bought it. Then, it was off to the department store for all the practical stuff: water heaters, water purifiers, and a wide variety of tools. And of course, we made a stop at the beauty supply store because even in the apocalypse, my mom wasn't about to give up her skincare routine. We also picked up a ton of over-the-counter meds from the pharmacy just in case. At night, while my parents were busy making sausages, I continued my shopping spree online. I ordered everything from waterproof drones to all kinds of electronics, dryers, and dehumidifiers in every possible size, space heaters, binoculars, and complete toolkits for both woodworking and electrical work. Once the flood hit, money wouldn't mean much anymore, and supplies would be scarce. I wasn't taking any chances. If we might need it, I bought it. On the fourth day, as I was scrolling through my social media, I saw a post from Kelly. She had uploaded a bunch of pictures from a concert she'd gone to, bragging about how George had spent $500,000 to arrange a private dinner with her favorite celebrity. My parents spoil me so much. What am I going to do? Haha! She wrote, followed by several heart emojis. I stared at her post, feeling nothing but cold amusement. What she didn't know was that this little private dinner would delay their trip home just long enough to get caught in the massive storm. I couldn't help but wonder if Kelly would still be laughing when the rain started pouring down on them. With that thought, I gave her post a quick like. Chapter 6. All the online orders finally arrived, piling up like a mountain of boxes that took over an entire room. I dug through them and pulled out the security cameras I'd been waiting for. Then, I made a quick trip back to the villa to install them in all the key spots. On my way back, I ran into my dad, who was driving up the mountain, hauling another load of stuff for the cave. I hitched a ride with him, and when we got there, I couldn't believe how much progress he'd made. The place was practically a fortress. The doors and windows were reinforced, both bulletproof and explosion-proof. Top of the line, as safe as it gets. Inside, he'd installed ventilation and hooked up water and electricity. The floors had been leveled and cemented. The walls smoothed out. He'd even sectioned off areas for a kitchen, bathroom, living room, and bedrooms. Toward the back, he'd added an emergency door just in case we ever needed a quick escape. Smart thinking. Then, with a grin, he led me to my room. The walls were freshly painted, sheer curtains hung by the window, and there was a brand new spring mattress on the bed. It was all done up in the latest style. "Honey, I made you a princess room, just like the one at the villa." My dad had always felt bad, like he could never give me the very best. Turning my room into something out of a TV show had become his personal mission. But to me, he was already the best dad in the world. If he had only $100, he'd hand it all over without a second thought and then go out and earn another 100 just to make sure I had enough. Honestly, I couldn't have asked for more. Over the next few days, we quietly started moving in. My mom would pack up things at home, load them onto a tractor, and sneak them up the mountain when no one was watching. My dad, with his truck driver's license, took care of the big stuff, hauling all the supplies we'd ordered up to the cave. I stayed behind, helping unload and organize everything as it arrived. For the next 3 days, moving became our full-time job. If it hadn't been for the carts my dad bought ahead of time, we would have never managed to lug everything up here. By the end, when everything was finally in place, the 3 of us collapsed onto the couch, completely wiped out. None of us could move a muscle. We had originally tossed around the idea of going down to the city for a nice meal before the flood hit, but after all that work, all we wanted to do was lie there and never get up. On the final day before the storm, my dad went outside, gathered up some branches and wood, and camouflaged the cave's entrance. He didn't want anyone stumbling upon it by accident. Meanwhile, my mom was double-checking the ventilation. We were using smokeless coal, so we had to be extra careful about carbon monoxide. I was busy setting up the chicken coop inside the cave. Once it was ready, I brought in the hens we'd brought from home and got them settled. With everything in place, the three of us stood at the entrance, watching the rain begin to fall. It was just like before. The torrential downpour was coming. Later, as I was scrolling through my phone, a notification popped up. It was a voice message from Kelly. She must have just noticed that I liked her post. "Lily, I bet you're so jealous that I got to go to the concert and even had dinner with my favorite celebrity," she said, her voice dripping with smugness. "You must be bored out of your mind stuck at home, huh?" Chapter 7. I laughed. "Oh, yes, you're right." She didn't catch the sarcasm in my voice, snorted proudly, and ordered me around. "We're coming home this afternoon. Make sure the house is clean." I took a handful of sunflower seeds from my mom and started munching. "I'm not going back. Clean it yourself." The phone seemed to be handed to someone else, and George's angry voice came through. "Are you rebelling? Do you want me to beat you to death when I get back?" He was so loud that my dad, sitting nearby, heard him and was ready to curse back. I calmed my dad and continued to provoke George. "Old man, I can tell your fortune. You won't live past this year." There was a fit of coughing on the other end, and George was too angry to speak. Emily took the phone and tried to persuade me in a soft voice. "How can you argue with your father? He's still your biological father. Can't you be more filial?" I sneered. "You're my biological mother, so I'll give you some advice. Those who preach magnanimity will be struck by lightning. You've told me to be magnanimous so many times, and heaven is watching." After hanging up, my dad was still fuming, wanting to fight George. My mom, on the other hand, was more relaxed. "The rain is getting heavier. If they're still on the road, it won't be pleasant." She was right. The rain was pouring down as if the sky had been punctured, and water was gushing down. The news reported that in just 1 hour, the rainfall was equivalent to 30 West Lakes. George and his group had just reached the city, and the water on the roads was already up to the car tires. Driving in such conditions was difficult, and many people, fearing accidents, got out of their cars, holding umbrellas and wading through the water cautiously. George's car stalled halfway, and they had no choice but to get out. Kelly was drenched but had no time to worry about it. Someone ahead stepped into an open manhole, disappearing instantly without even a scream. Kelly turned pale, terrified that she might be next. They clung to each other, trembling, and finally made it to the roadside. George took a breath and planned to hire a bus to take them home. Just then, a deep rumble came from the sky, like the heavens were about to unleash their fury. Lightning flashed through the clouds, turning into a web of electricity. The thunder grew louder and closer, almost deafening. The nearest lightning strike hit right at George and Emily's feet. Emily screamed in terror. The apocalyptic scene terrified everyone. Someone shouted, "Get to the subway! It's safe there!" People rushed underground in a panic. I lounged on the sofa, sipping soda and scrolling through my phone. The internet was flooded with posts about the rainstorm. Many photographers had captured the terrifying scenes, and even ordinary people with their phones could convey the horror. Some urged people to seek shelter and be cautious of flooding. Others warned that the heavy rain would lead to power and water outages, advising people to stock up on supplies. Some heeded the advice, while others scoffed. I didn't fear typhoons, and now a rainstorm scares you all like children. I ignored the mocking comments. They'd realize the danger soon enough. I saw posts about George's neighborhood, including the lightning strike that had become a meme. "Your lightning delivery has arrived." As I scrolled, a top comment caught my eye. "Is anyone getting off at Songjian Station on Line 2? The water has flooded the subway. Get off early." I sat up straight. Songjian Station? That's the station near our villa. People outside the subway were frantically warning others online and calling their loved ones. But inside the station, with poor signal, no one saw the warnings. Everyone was relieved to have escaped the rain. Suddenly, the subway car shook violently, then lost power and stopped. Kelly, annoyed, looked out the window and saw a horrifying sight. Floodwater had broken through the barriers, rushing down the subway steps, heading straight for the car. Chapter 8. Water poured into the car through the gaps, rising from ankle-deep to knee-deep in seconds. Screams filled the car. Everyone was terrified, scrambling onto the seats. A man grabbed a fire extinguisher, smashing a window to escape. George suddenly yanked him down. "Let me go first." Kelly and Emily followed closely, taking advantage of the man's shock to climb out. "Dad, why didn't you wait for Mom and me?" Kelly tugged at George's sleeve, complaining. Before she could finish, George slapped her. "Shut up. If you waste my time, I'll send you to die." Kelly clutched her swollen face, too scared to speak. The smell of potato stew wafted from the kitchen, but I was focused on my phone. I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted George and his family to drown at Songjian Station, another part worried about innocent people. Then I saw 3 muddy, disheveled figures outside the Gu Villa on the surveillance camera. They had escaped. What a pity. The potato stew was ready. I scooped a generous portion of stew over my rice, watching the potatoes and rice soak in the gravy. The stew was tender, the meat falling off the bone, bursting with flavor. I savored the meal, enjoying every bite. After eating, I returned to the sofa with a glass of juice, checking the surveillance feed. Emily had spent a long time in the kitchen, finally bringing out a dish. George and Kelly pounced on it, dividing it between themselves. By the time Emily got her rice, the dish was gone, leaving an empty plate. She stood there, tears welling up. I found it amusing. Feeling wronged already? There's more to come. Besides, didn't she always preach magnanimity? Now it's her turn to be magnanimous. Chapter 9. The rain continued to pour. On the first day, not many people went to the supermarket for supplies. By the third day, the stores were packed with people scrambling for food. The city's drainage couldn't keep up with the rain, and the water level kept rising. Everyone knew they needed enough supplies to survive the extreme weather. Prices soared, but food still flew off the shelves. Fights over a bag of rice or a bunch of vegetables became common. In this chaos, Emily, used to a pampered life, often returned with little to show and a lot of bruises. After a few times, with the villa's supplies dwindling, George's face grew darker. Finally, when Emily came back with a basket of rotten vegetables, George threw an ashtray at her head. "All you bring back is garbage? What's the use of keeping you around?" Blood dripped from Emily's forehead, and she mumbled. "People are going crazy out there. I had to pay extra for this." Hunger made George even more irritable. He raised his fist. "Shut up and cook." Emily didn't dare argue, wiping the blood off and hurrying to the kitchen. And Kelly? She pretended not to see or hear anything, staying silent. She didn't want George's attention on her. By the 5th day, the water on the streets was a meter high, enough to drown a child. To make matters worse, the power system was failing, working intermittently. The humidity was unbearable, with water seeping through the walls. But there wasn't enough power for the dehumidifier. The air was hot and sticky, and Kelly's eczema flared up. George, tormented by the heat and humidity, was like an enraged lion. "Go buy food. We're out of rice." Emily looked distressed. "They're not selling anymore. No amount of money will get us rice. People are keeping it for themselves." With no staple food and no electricity to boil water, they had to soak vegetables in water, pretending it was soup. George threw his bowl aside after a few bites. Then he had an idea, turning his gaze to Kelly. Kelly was hungry and wanted food. But meeting George's gaze, she shivered. Chapter 10. George left and didn't return for a while. I decided to eat. My mom suggested hot pot to warm us up in the damp weather. The steam from the hot pot filled the room, and my dad added plate after plate of beef and lamb. My mom's dipping sauce was the best. The meat, dipped in the sauce, was delicious. I ate until I was full, then checked the surveillance feed. To my surprise, George was eating white noodles. Even though it was plain noodles and water, he ate with gusto. Emily was still eating soaked vegetables. And Kelly was nowhere to be seen. I found it odd. The bedroom door opened. A man, satisfied, walked out, adjusting his pants. He glanced at George, then placed a small bag of rice on the table before leaving. How could someone be giving away supplies at a time like this? Did George have such good connections? Kelly stumbled out of the bedroom, her clothes disheveled. Her exposed skin showed signs of abuse. I realized how she had gotten that bag of rice. But despite her sacrifice, Kelly didn't get a bowl of noodles. George gave her a bowl of soaked vegetables, with a few noodles from his bowl. Kelly, tears in her eyes, reached for the bowl when another man entered. He placed 3 packs of instant noodles on the table, then carried Kelly back to the bedroom. I remembered how Kelly had bullied me. She had stepped on my face, poking my private parts. With a body like that, you should find a few men. I wonder how much you're worth. Now, I thought, those words could be thrown back at her. I wondered if Kelly, who had bullied me, ever thought her worth would be a small bag of rice and 3 packs of instant noodles. When I came back to my senses, Kelly was eating in the living room. She kept her head down, but I could see the hatred in her eyes. George, the culprit, was picking his teeth, showing no remorse. My mom had made braised pork and sweet and sour ribs. I took a picture of the feast and posted it in the foster family group chat. The chat was silent for a moment, then exploded with messages. "You bitch! How dare you eat so well behind my back? I'll skin you alive. Where are you? Don't you know your mother is suffering? Unfilial daughter." The 3 of them were furious. I replied calmly, "It seems you're eating well enough to curse me, so I won't bring any food. You little brat, bring me food. I want meat. Get over here, I'm starving. Lily, do you want a beating? Lily, how can you watch your mother starve?" They were desperate, spamming the chat. They thought they could scare me into bringing supplies. But when they got no response, they realized they couldn't control me with words. "Sweetie, have pity on your mother. Lily, I'm sorry. Please bring me food. Daughter, your father is really hungry. You can't leave me like this." I laughed at their pleas. Honestly, I preferred their arrogant attitude from a few days ago. Though their current tone was better, it wasn't humble enough. I replied, "Your attitude isn't good enough. I don't want to bring you anything." George instantly turned vicious. "You ungrateful brat." I sent a close-up of the braised pork, steam rising from the tender meat. The 3 of them, starving, drooled. They seemed to discuss something, then Kelly set up her phone on the table and started recording. The 3 of them knelt in front of the phone. Pfft. I almost choked on my soda. On the surveillance feed, the 3 of them knelt and begged, "Daughter, it's Daddy's fault. I'm kneeling to apologize. Please forgive me. Sweetie, Mommy ignored your feelings before, but I gave birth to you. Lily, I was wrong. Please forgive me." I laughed. They were really desperate for food. I sent the kneeling video to my parents, and we laughed together. When the 3 of them grew anxious waiting for a reply, I finally responded, "I'm satisfied with the video. As a reward, you can get food from my room." George was the first to run, followed by Kelly and Emily. They expected carefully prepared food, at least instant hot pot. But when they opened the cabinet, they found a few expired bread rolls. In the continuous rain, the bread was moldy. "Lily!" Kelly screamed, furious. "You expect us to eat this? Isn't this what you used to feed me? I'm just returning the favor." I retorted, "Eat it or starve." George, with his sharp instincts, grabbed all the bread. Kelly tried to snatch some but got a slap instead. "You brat, no food for you. Tomorrow, go entertain more guests." Chapter 11. Even abuse can spark creativity. When George brought another tattooed man home, Kelly somehow became his woman. The family dynamics flipped instantly. George was tied up in the corner of the sofa. Whenever Kelly was in a bad mood, she'd beat him to vent her anger. Over time, George developed a reflex. Whenever Kelly approached, he'd flinch. It amused me many times. Besides beating George, Kelly persistently called and messaged me. She seemed obsessed with finding out where I was hiding. On the 7th day of the rain, I finally answered Kelly's call. She was stunned for a moment, then cursed me with every vile word she knew. I waited for her to finish, then replied calmly. "I'm not here to talk. I'm here to tell you your death date." She was furious. "You're lying." Because today was the day the flood would break out. The unprecedented rain had caused rivers to swell, water levels rising hundreds of meters. No dam could hold back such water. The flood swept through everything in its path. It washed away bridges, submerged overpasses, and when it reached the villa, Kelly was still angrily trying to call me again. When water started flooding the house, she panicked, trying to sweep it out. But how could she sweep it all? The water level rose quickly, reaching half a meter. George, tied to the sofa, was terrified. Sitting on the sofa, the water was already up to his waist. "Kelly, honey, untie me. Hurry!" George screamed, but Kelly had already run upstairs. Emily, though weak, also crawled away. The water continued to rise, reaching George's chest. "Save me, I don't want to die, save me!" He cried and begged, looking pathetic. I turned on the surveillance microphone. "George, you're about to die here. How unlucky." George was shocked to find hidden cameras in the house and even more shocked to hear my voice. "Lily, sweetie, is that you? Save Daddy. Daddy was wrong. Please save me. I'll be good to you from now on. All my wealth will be yours." I watched him go from begging to cursing, then to crying in fear, until the flood swallowed him. If I were the old Lily, I might have gone back to save him for the sake of blood ties. But that Lily was dead. On the rooftop, Kelly's tattooed man came with a raft to save her. Emily followed, trying to get on the raft. The flood had reached the 3rd floor, and it was only a matter of time before it swallowed the rooftop. The tattooed man tried to help Emily, but Kelly pushed his hand away. "If she gets on, the raft might sink." Emily was incredulous. "Kelly, I'm your mother. How can you leave me to die?" "My mother?" Kelly sneered. "You're not my mother. We have no blood relation. Go die. Stop wasting my time." Emily wavered, and a wave knocked her into the flood. I watched silently. For such a heartless daughter, she mistreated her own. I wondered if Emily regretted it in her final moments. Kelly thought she was safe. But the tattooed man suddenly pushed her off the raft. "Why?" Kelly clung to the raft, confused. "I did it for us." The man shook his head, seeing through her. "You did it for yourself. If you can abandon your mother, you'd push me off at the first sign of danger. I felt sorry for you, but I won't be the farmer in the fable." Kelly clung to the raft, crying and begging. The man seemed to waver. Suddenly, hands emerged from the water, grabbing Kelly's hair. Like a water ghost. I realized it was Emily. She wanted to drag someone down with her. The pull of the water was strong. Kelly grunted and was pulled under. Bubbles rose to the surface, then nothing. The flood lasted a long time. Through my binoculars, I often saw bodies of people and animals floating in the water. A year later, the floating debris finally decreased. Another year later, the rebuilt dam was operational. This meant the floodwaters were receding. The streets and roads were muddy with silt and sand. More survivors emerged, joining the cleanup efforts. My family and I came down from the mountain, taking up mops and brushes. The flood had destroyed our lives. Now, with our efforts, we'd rebuild our home.